Lately, I've been doing a mix in which I wanted everything, drums, bass, guitars and keyboards, to sound big up in front and loud. But when it came to the vocals, that was it. I simply couldn't get them in front of the mix without making the massive playback sound smaller. The following trick solved the problem so well that I must tell you about it. You can apply it to any mix where you want to create a wall of sound with manageable effort. First, I tried to optimize the usual standard tools such as EQ, compressor or limiter. But no, there was obviously no lack of any specific EQ frequencies. More compression or even limiting corrupted the dynamics and did not bring forward the voice itself, but annoying artifacts instead. Of course, I tried various reverb, echo and modulation effects. This resulted in some interesting stuff that I was happy to use for the mix, but it didn't make me reach the goal. The vocals still did more harm than good to the mix, and they made the sound somewhat unprofessional. But when I applied a particular parallel compression to each voice at the very end of the vocal chain, everything was fine instantly. The settings for this parallel compression are quickly shown. Afterwards, I'll show you some interesting sound examples and explain why this technique is so effective. You can test this method with a compressor of your choice. However, it should allow pretty short attack and release times and ideally have a dry-wet control.
Look at me now, eyes open.
I will use HOFA System to illustrate the concept. For one, because this plugin suite is available to all HOFA college students, and also because I used it for the mix mentioned above. So let's start with the settings.
Eyes open. Back up, boy, this my moment.
The channel mode is more suitable in this case because the release times are less dependent on the input signal. The ratio on 10 will do. Parallel compression can be used heavily. The resulting artifacts are minimized with a dry-wet ratio. And it should be fast. Very short attack and release times are ideal for this, especially with the system comp, not least because it is modeled on the analog SSL channel comp and always sounds organic, even with extreme settings.
We be in a trap like blind mice. Life's a gamble, I roll dice.
When you set the threshold, make sure that there is always some activity in the reduction display. The max gain reduction may be around 10 dB or even higher. You can also adjust the dry-wet ratio to your personal liking. Sure, at 100% it's a bit over the top, but then it wouldn't be parallel or, as this technique is also known, New York compression. It's interesting how adding just a bit of the original makes such a clear difference to the sound. In most cases, 20 or 30% of the dry signal is enough to mask the interfering artifacts sufficiently. Take a look at these two analyzer curves of the vocals. The orange one shows the take without, and the white one the same take with our special New York compression.
Look at me now, eyes open. Back up, boy, this my moment.
While the mid frequencies are exactly identical, the parallel compressed signal has a louder low end and, above all, a stronger presence range even though no EQ was used. That applies for both the peak and the energy curve, which shows the average value over time.
Life's a gamble, I roll dice. Bet against me, I roll twice.
But what is the reason for this frequency boost?
Eyes open.
Compression is controlled by the loudest frequency range. For vocals and many other instruments, this is the mid-range. And when the mid-range is reduced, the high frequencies and, if there is any, the bass are increased. This applies in particular to the extreme limiter-like attack, release and ratio settings that we've used here. These drastic settings provide additional harmonics, which gives the parallel compressed sound a stronger presence range and more punch. Let me visualize these harmonics for you. You hear a pink noise where a low-pass filter cuts everything above 1 kHz. When I activate our compressor with its radical settings, it adds a good deal of harmonics. With more moderate settings, there are significantly fewer harmonics, which would not be so effective for our purpose. Our trick also works with female vocals. In this example, the high frequencies are almost 4 decibels louder in both curves. Even drums can benefit from this technique. Here, a louder dry signal prevents the drum sound from becoming too ambient. Okay, if there's an instrument in your next mix that you can't place in front, this technique will help you to give it a gentle push. I very much appreciate a like, and if you subscribe to my channel, you won't miss a thing.